So welcome to the next in our series of online messages brought to you by the friends at First Church Rowley. This is Tom Bentley, the pastor. We hope these messages can help you in your journey of life. If you'd like to know more about the ministry at First Church Rowley, there'll be some information for you at the end of the video. So thank you for spending time with us. Grace to you and peace from our friend Jesus. We read in the Gospel of Matthew this famous story. It's in the 4th chapter. As Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon called Peter and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. "Come, follow me," Jesus said, "and I will send you out to fish for people." At once they left their nets and followed him. What an impulse disorder that was. Doesn't it sound like it? Like, okay, I'll follow you. And down go the nets. Of course, the gospel, for many reasons, has to keep these descriptions quite brief, mainly because it used up too much paper. So it's more of an outline of what happened, but I sense that Jesus would be as direct as that. Come, follow me. He always is. Life throws a lot of things at us and a lot of invitations. Maybe ones we don't want to accept because of changes that are happening in our own life. We're invited to slow down if we're older. We're invited to become perhaps more budget conscious if we're living on a pension. We're invited to discover a whole new world if we're young and we've just headed off to college. Life is full of invitations, and change is difficult. It's a human experience to always have things changing. Everything in the universe is changing. When you're younger, change is often an opportunity because it's about identity. Oh, I'd like to find out what that's like. Maybe I'll give that a try. And so it's an adventure, a search for identity. When we're mature, it starts to become a search for security. We become increasingly adverse to change. We have to be frugal with our limited energy. We have to be smart and not get involved in fights that we can't really win or complete. Jesus comes to us just the way we are. And the experience of encountering Jesus as however you encounter Jesus in your heart, that opportunity, of course, can happen when somebody's a young child, but also as an aging in place senior citizen. Jesus is always knocking at the door. Jesus is always offering an invitation. We need to be careful what kind of risk we take. That's just the way it is. We should be discreet. We should do our due diligence. That's what everyone will tell us. So an instant decision, that's not usually blessed and supported by many people, unless, of course, it's an instant decision in a moment of danger, and we take one exit versus another, and maybe we avoid the destruction. These two men, Simon, later called Peter the Rock because he was so solid, and his brother Andrew just decided they'd had enough of fishing, and this other thing sounded much better. But also, my sense is that they had discerned from afar this Jesus. They knew who he was. He was a teacher in where they lived. He was a powerful human being, and he was collecting individuals to be his followers, his special inner circle of followers. And it was a compliment to them to be recruited. They weren't scholars, they were working people. And that's the beauty and power of the Christian message, is that Jesus' invitation comes to anybody, no matter the circumstances. Our first impulse is, of course, maybe to say yes, but our next impulse usually wins out, which is to say no. It's harder to let go of something than it is to pick something up. We like what we have. What is happening that's new in our midst is hard to engage because it is new. A little later on in the gospel, we have James and John, the sons of Zebedee, who's a fisherman. They're all fishing together, and James and John say bye, drop their nets, but the old man stays in the boat. Maybe that looks better to him at that point in his life. Maybe staying in the boat looks better to you in your point of life. With all the vicissitudes of opportunity and threat in the universe, it's always tempting to stay put and not drop what we have or what we're doing to take on something new. But if we don't move ahead into the creative invitation, then things won't change, at least the way we might prefer, but they will change. We will get older. We will become less connected. We will perhaps be less creatively challenged in life. If we try to stay the same, that is an unhappy decision, inevitably. We don't stay the same, and God doesn't intend us to stay the same in our life, our trajectory of purpose on this planet. And so we're invited, along with our friends in AA and every other support group, to let go and let God. Let go of whatever net you're wrapped up in, and let God take your life. That is an image we can work with right now. It doesn't mean that what you or I are doing right now is necessarily negative, but are we using it to block the change that the Divine Holy Presence calls us to engage? That's always the question, no matter where we are in life's journey. No matter where we are, Jesus accepts us just the way we are and invites us with open arms, open heart, come, follow me. And the suggestion is Jesus will show us what our next step needs to be. For Simon Peter and his brother Andrew was to go out and connect other human beings and bring them into this conversation, this whole critical transformation of the human community through the love and grace of Christ. Maybe that isn't what God is inviting you to go and do, but you are being invited. I don't know what the invitation is. Even in my own life, I don't know either. What separates us from pursuing the holy? And let's define that as wholeness, completion, connection, authenticity. What prevents us is, well, stuff we want to hang on to. We don't want to drop it. So it's time for our friends in AA to also instruct us. They say you can't start the journey unless you make a fearless inventory. And an inventory inevitably leads to dumping something and traveling a bit lighter into the future. We can sense that these good souls who responded to Jesus' first call to follow him had been pondering something for a while. And so in those moments of decision, it gives us an opportunity to have a sober recognition of who we are and precisely what makes the person we are important in the world and what God is inviting us to become. That's why this self-reflection is critical before we do respond, even if we're older. So what is God calling you to be and to do? That's the question of the moment. What is God calling you to be and to do in your life of faith? Is it that a life mutually exclusive from this other world you live in? Does God want to integrate those? Are you in a church community? Would you like to be in a faith community somehow? Is that what God's calling you to do or to be? Or maybe leave the faith community you're in. It's always an opportunity, but it's always a threat. Change is important. When we secure the decision to make that change, can we be confident that we're in the arms of God and that we're in the grace of the loving one, that we're in the guidance and under the support of the one who leads us? That's really the question. I can't say where it's going, neither can you. There's a song, The Summons. Will you come and follow me if I but call your name? And later on in this lovely music, there's this verse that starts this way. Will you leave yourself behind if I but call your name? Will you care for cruel and kind and never be the same? Will you? That's what happens when we respond to this guy Jesus. We leave the self behind, we respond, and we end up caring for those who we don't like and helping those in need. That's a sign of a legitimate call. This outward call of Jesus calls us to something. It's not just a vague notion, but it becomes very powerful if we just simply drop the junk we have and move lightly forward into the world, traveling with the one who loves us and knows us best. So there's a fellow, Reverend Ken Samuel, he's a pastor in Georgia, and he says, here's a prayer for the moment. And it's simple. It's, Lord, help me say yes to you right now. So let's say that prayer. Lord, help me say yes to you right now. Amen. And amen. So again, thank you for spending time with us. If you'd like to know more about First Church Raleigh, you can go online at firstchurchraleigh.org. And of course, we'd always like to hear from you. You can call us anytime at 978-948-3993. So peace and best wishes. Goodbye.